So, Dr. Phoebe Asquith, thank you very much for coming on the show. I'm really, really looking forward to this.
Thanks, Martin. It's really good to be here. Nice to meet you.
And you too. So, where did this all start, this interest in psychology? Was it something you were interested in childhood, or?
Oh, that's a good question, actually. Let's have a think. So I think I was already always interested in, as every kind of child is in people and what they were doing. And as children, we're sponges, aren't we, in social situations. We try not constantly try to learn how to act and behave. So I think I was definitely, my mum told me I used to watch people before I kind of decided how to act in particular situations. So I think it's always been a interest of mine, but as it is for probably lots of little kids. I think my interest really started to grow when I was more around 17, 18. I just heard about the kind of psychology course, and it's something that's not really taught in primary school, secondary school, is it? And it just seemed really kind of fundamental to the world that I was seeing around me, and I was just really intrigued and curious, really. I think even in biology we didn't really learn much about the brain, so it was the kind of mystery of the unknown, and something that seemed, so fundamental to everybody's lives. Well, it is fundamental, isn't it, to everyone's lives? So it's I think that's what initially got me kind of interested in taking it up in a kind of educational academic sense.
And then you, because we were talking before hitting record about, I did psychology at A level, but it was, I think, like you say, it was back then it was a brand new subject, and I just found it fascinating in terms of it's unknown, isn't it, that you don't realize there's so many studies that have been done into why we behave the certain way we do, perception, everything. And you think in today's world, those kind of things are never more important. We're living in quite a divisive time, and psychology underpins all of it. When did you do it at A level and then go in to do it at degree level?
Yes, so I did do a psychology A level. So psychology A level was learning, like you say, a lot about different studies that had been done in the past, a lot of which wouldn't be allowed today. I think the studies are quite kind of cruel.
Was it Milgram's one, the electricity? Was it
there's
when they
Milgram's,
electrocuted
that's a really famous one, isn't it? Where you kind of, you're told, somebody in a kind of lab coat tells you that you can kind of administer shocks to people, and lots of people kind of do. Exactly. So I did do it. It's like exactly, or the prison studies, in Bardo prison study. That's another really, really famous one. In A level, you learn a lot about the kind of those types of studies, and I think the thing that really struck me was that yes, you can see patterns in human behavior, but actually there's quite a lot of kind of unexplained variance as well. Like, not everybody acts the same in every single situation, and the reasons for that are really, really complicated, and come down to lots of kind of environmental factors, genetic factors, sometimes randomness, that they're included in kind of statistical models within psychology. And maybe that's just because we don't understand that yet, or maybe there is some randomness kind of involved in kind of neural activity. It's all to work out, isn't it? But that's I really, really enjoyed my psychology course, and ended up doing a psychology degree, and then I wasn't sure what to do with my psychology degree, because another thing I love about psychology is that it's really, really broad. So some of the modules that you can do in psychology are almost like philosophical modules. It's all around kind of what is consciousness, what is conscience, how do we experience the world around us in a kind of more conceptual sense. And then the other side of psychology can be neurochemistry and physics and biology and that type of thing. So the broadness of psychology is really kind of fascinating, and it's because of that you really need to kind of decide which area you want to work in order to kind of create a career out of it. So after I'd done my degree, I worked for some mental health charities. I did some work within the educational system, just to kind of try and figure out where my kind of passions lay. And that was in research in the end. So my background, as I would call it kind of nowadays, is in research psychology. So I've had the opportunity to work across lots of different projects under that umbrella of psychology, which has been really, really interesting. And yeah, and being able to kind of apply the findings of psychology within industry now, again, has just been brilliant, because I think there's so much incredible research work done within the academic circles and within industry circles as well, and it's just making sure that we really empower organizations to use all of that information, particularly in an area as important as well-being. So yeah, I can talk through a little bit about research that I've done in the past, if that's interesting. Or
yeah, definitely. It's
yeah.
it's all interesting.
Yeah,
I
find
find
it interesting.
it fascinating. Yeah.
It is, yeah. I think the thing I love about research as well is that you come at it with a question, and that's such a motivating kind of aspect of the work. You know, you kind of hone in on something that will be really useful to know the answer to, basically. And it's problem solving, it's understanding the best way to tackle that question and understand the problem, and the subject is you know, ourselves and the people around us. So it's just yeah, it's a fascinating area to work in. And the areas that I've done research in have been around human cognition. So that's how we perceive what's around us, how we process that information, and how we make decisions based on that information. How we our behavior, how we choose what behaviors we exhibit, and how we create behavior change within ourselves and sustain behavior change, that type of thing. Another kind of favorite of my areas of research that I've been involved with is around human technology interaction. And that's played a lot into the work that I do within Sabio at the moment. So my current role is working as a psychologist within Sabio to help to improve the employee experience, so people working with technologies within call centres. So human technology interaction is a real area of passion and interest for me as well. I think mainly because of the kind of how exciting it is, where it's going to go. You know, technology is just going to get more and more. It's already so integrated into our lives, but it's going to get more and more sophisticated. We're going to be partnering with technology more and more. The impact of that on our psyche, on our experience of the world is just, it is fascinating. And I think kind of call center agents are in some ways on the real forefront of that. They're having to partner with technology, and they're being kind of monitored through technology constantly. The customer experience built around technology and the human influence. So it's, yeah, that's another kind of research passion area of mine, definitely.
There's so much to talk about, and it's so even just how you mentioned then around our interactions with technology. I read an article the other day that said it was someone postulating about what are the impacts of how we interact with voice enabled, whether it's Alexa or Siri, or that we are demonstrating to children especially that we can be abrupt, that you have to give, that there's there's no politeness in it, that you don't need to say please or thank you or things like that. And what impact is that going to have on your then interactions with humans, you know, and that kind of, and also then on language, so that in the future, if you to get things done, you're talking in a way that you wouldn't talk to a human. What impact does that have? And I think, you know, the work that you do and the expertise you have, do you have to sort of turn off sometimes, because otherwise you're analyzing and looking at everything around you with a kind of, oh, that's the bystander effect, or oh, that's this, or that's this, or
I don't think I need to turn it off. I think it's actually really interesting to kind of keep that side switched on as you're looking around. I think, I mean, like I said, psychology is so broad, and there are
Mm.
often so many different kind of theories or interpretations of a situation that you could kind of use as a lens when you're looking at things in kind of particularly social environments that you know, I wouldn't pretend to know kind of all of them. So I think
Mm.
I don't necessarily need to feel like I'm switching that off, because it's not a constant stream, right? Like when I'm talking to people,
Yeah, yeah,
people
yeah.
often worry that I'm going to kind of psychoanalyze them or things like that, and that's not the kind of psychology that I've been involved with. So kind of psychoanalysis or kind of body
Yeah.
language or that
Mm.
type of thing, they're not kind of my area of expertise. So I'm not, it doesn't kind of interrupt my personal kind of daily life when kind of chatting and observing people. But things like the bystander effect and kind of more broader social, what's the word, theories can be really
Mm.
interesting to kind of notice when they're
Yeah.
happening. And often a lot of the research that's been done has been done around um, social situations where, so for example, the bystander effect, that was originally done because or the study that, or a famous study that they did around the bystander effect, was because people weren't helping
Mm.
somebody in trouble or somebody in need, particularly when there were more people there, you're less likely to help. Um,
Mm.
and so I think a lot of the time those types of studies can actually prompt us to do more in those situations. I've been in a situation before where I think, oh, I'm probably standing back a bit more now because of the bystander effect, and it kind of prompts me to say, actually, that's like just a bias of
Mm.
my brain. It's not the right thing to step back. It's actually the right thing to step
Mm.
forward. So I think understanding psychology theory based on a lot of the studies in the past can be really kind of motivating to
Yeah.
do the right thing almost, or kind of, yeah,
Well,
understand.
you
Go on.
you said something right at the start about how psychology wasn't taught in primary or secondary school, and you think
Yeah.
um, with teenage daughters, myself, I think that if they were exposed to psychology earlier in their education, it would
Mm.
absolutely help them understand life and navigate social situations far better, or just give them more equipment,
Yeah.
better equip them,
That's it.
like you say,
Yeah.
to understand.
That's it. I think I do completely agree. I think it's taught slightly more in secondary schools now, I believe. But yes, I do think the same, that if we kind of understand the biases that human beings can have, or the
Mm.
ways in which we
Mm.
can sometimes what's the word? We can sometimes kind of feel like we're not doing, or feel like we should be doing something when we're not, or we kind of have a
Mm.
self-reflection. If you teach somebody to have self-reflection on themselves and understand the kind of bounds of human psychology, I think that can be really, really helpful if done in the right way from a
Mm.
young age. But yeah, it's definitely a topic that's helped me kind of in my life, having kind of studied it a bit more, and kind of navigate particular situations, like even things like public speaking, or meeting new people, or trying to connect with, like I said, I used to work in a kind of the education system, so trying to connect with people of a particular age group, or who are going
Mm.
through particular issues. It's just got so many applications, kind of understanding
Mm.
how people might be processing the world or information around them, why they might be acting out, why you might be feeling nervous, why you might have been snappy when you actually didn't want to be, all of these kind of yeah, different kind of, like I say, applications of the subjects can make it really, really valuable to learn about, really, definitely.
And when you came to do your PhD, what was
Yes.
that in?
So my PhD was it was to do with perceiving visual things. So I, for example, showed like movies or particular stimuli within MRI scanners, MEG scanners, and tracked activity within the brain and then used different machine learning techniques to identify which areas of the brain were processing different types of information. So this had quite a lot of applications in understanding which parts of the brain do what, because different parts of the brain have kind of like different jobs. So for example, there might be one area that's just looking at the edges of objects, and that can help you spot when they're moving. There are higher functional brain areas that will be interested in social interactions or faces or language. So helping to kind of map that across an individual's brain is interesting kind of in general, like how in general do people's brain, how are they organized? Because everybody's brain is organized in the same way, like a hand or something. Like we've got kind of areas that are recognizable when you just look at anybody's brain that's not damaged. But everybody's brain is also unique, so everybody's hands are slightly different. So being able to map these areas in individuals' brains using things like movies and kind of separating out those signals is really important for things like brain surgery, or for identifying areas in brain. Let's say if somebody had a particular brain damage to the back of their head, it might mean that a particular area of their brain say isn't there anymore or not functioning correctly. So you can map it on an individual level for people. So my PhD was quite methodological, really. It was a lot of brain scanning and data analysis, developing this machine learning technique. But while I was doing my PhD, I got involved with lots of different kind of human factors psychology projects. So that was when I got my interest in human machine interaction. I'd say that's when I kind of really started kind of kicking off that, and mainly because I was showing people these images and things, and actually I kind of stepped back a bit and I was like, oh, it's them. This is them interacting with a movie at the end of the day. This isn't actually, they're in a scanner. They're not walking around in real life. And for the purposes of my kind of my methods, my machine learning methods, that was fine. But I was kind of interested in understanding people's like neural responses and reactions to kind of technology more generally. So I did various research projects with industry partners on things like automated driving. So how do you respond when you're sat in something that's driving itself? There's quite a lot of research going into that at the moment. As you can imagine, because okay, we've got automatic driving cars. Does anybody want to be in them, or are they scared stiff? You know, what do people need within those types of environments to make them feel secure, make them feel safe? How do they want to interact with that? Is it actually better when people feel like they do have a bit of control? So yeah, it was that type of thing. I did a lot of work around cybersecurity as well. So understanding how working culture or the UI, a user interface, can influence safety online, how things like well-being impacts decision making. You know, if you're tired, what impact does that have on your decision making? So that started to overlap a lot more with well-being. And I worked in a large company helping them to create strategy around cyber safety for their employees, and that kind of overlapped a lot with their well-being strategy, and that kind of really led me to my job at People Matter, which is the company that was recently acquired by Sabio, which is how I came to work at Sabio. So yeah, that's kind of my journey.
Well, so you said something there that I imagine a lot of people kind of in our industry, their ears pricked up a bit, and it's because it's such a hot topic, and it's a good thing that it is. But well-being is kind of got a wide set of kind of, you know, it means a lot to a lot of people.
Yes.
What for you and the work you're doing, what does that actually mean then? Well-being in our industry, or well-being in anyone working with technology, or just well-being in general?
So well-being in general has a really kind of rich background and history. So the way that we've understood well-being in the past and across the world has really varied, and it's kind of brought us to where we are, where we've got a much more kind of holistic and like multifactorial idea of well-being. So in the past, we might have thought about well-being as being quite hedonistic. So feeling happy, or I think Aristotle used the word blessedness or prosperity. So this idea of kind of a higher sense of goodness or kind of happiness, and kind of over the years, and through the development of subjects like psychology, that's kind of been built out. So it's not just this idea of happiness. It's much more broad than that. And the way that we understand well-being, and this is kind of fundamental to our approach at Sabio, is that it's a multifactorial thing, as I mentioned earlier, that's built not just on emotions. Emotions play a really important part for you to kind of understand and reflect on your own well-being. So things like how happy you're feeling, how much energy you've got, that type of thing. But also the behaviors that you're engaging in, or that you're putting in place. Your environment is really, really important to well-being. So the way that you experience your environment, or so for example, if you're at work, are you able to focus? Are you feeling under pressure? Are you feeling appreciated? All of these kind of aspects play into this idea of well-being at work. And yeah, so it's a really, again, fascinating area, because it's constantly being reevaluated. We're learning more and more about what well-being is, or what constitutes positive well-being. But I think the kind of main takeaways are that it's the onus is often kind of put on the individual, and the individual plays a huge role in kind of manifesting positive well-being, but also the environment plays just as much of a role, if not more of a role. And this is where organizations and team leaders, managers, colleagues, family, friends play a really, really huge part. So we're not kind of silos. We're all connected, and being aware of the well-being of others around you, understanding how to support those around you as well as yourself is really, really important for well-being. And another thing that I think is really, really important to stress is that in line with what I was saying about, it's not just a case of happiness versus sadness. When we talk about positive well-being is about being able to process whichever emotions you are experiencing, and a wide plethora of emotions is natural, it's normal. We have them for a reason. We get angry for a reason. We get sad for a reason. They're there to serve a purpose. It's not about not experiencing those emotions or not processing them. It's being able to process them, taking them on board, understanding why they exist, and feeling as though you can get through those emotions, and that they don't kind of overwhelm you. That's what positive well-being kind of constitutes from in an emotional sense. And like I said, that can often be around kind of behaviors, having a really good understanding of what helps you and what doesn't, because everybody's different, and being able to communicate that to others, and being able to put things in place in your environment. So I think, yeah, well-being's a fascinating topic, because it means different things to different people, but in general there are some really, really clear markers of how what we can measure, and how we can understand if somebody's kind of doing well or not doing well. And looking at well-being in this way, so looking at the environment, looking at behaviors, understanding emotions, means that you can be much more actionable in improving well-being, recognizing where you're doing well, where you can improve, rather than just, oh, I feel bad, I feel sad. That's a symptom of something not being in place to support you through that. And like I said, it's okay to feel sad, but do I have the tools to be able to process this and kind of come through it so that I feel more kind of balanced in my emotions again? So yeah, that's kind of our approach, and the way that we map well-being. And because of my background in research, my kind of what's the word? My natural inclination is to constantly review and research this area anyway. So all of the work that we do is to validate our model of well-being, our understanding of well-being, and build that out, or kind of understand all of those factors and the independence of those factors, how all those factors interplay. So that's part of the work that we do within Sabio and with our customers, with organizations and employees. It's really important to kind of listen and understand the experiences of individuals and help to unpack the reasons why they have the experiences that they do. What role does the environment play? What role does their organization play?
It's fascinating. So if you look at well-being, then for you, some of the key parts that make it up are environment, emotions, and behaviors.
Yeah.
And I love that. Often I think it's reduced, isn't it, to questions around, are you happy? And you think, well, happiness is an emotion. So you don't exist in a permanent state of happiness. Actually, so what you're saying is you could have your well-being, actually you could be in a good place, but you're not necessarily at that moment happy, but you are equipped and supported to be able to recognize it as an emotion and move past it and still function.
Exactly.
Is that right?
Yeah, I think that's a really good summary. I think in the West particularly, we're focused on this idea of kind of euphoria or happiness as being as being well-being, and it's definitely a symptom of if things are going well, if you're lucky enough to not have kind of something really difficult happening, something like, if you've got a death in the family or something like that, of course you're going to be sad, of course you're going to be you're going to go through the stages of grief, you're going to be angry, it's impossible to be happy all the time. And I think it can actually be quite dangerous to suggest that is what well-being is, because it means that you kind of put pressure on yourself. You either put pressure on yourself to feel happy all the time, B, you self-reflect and think, why aren't I happy all the time? My life must be bad, or I'm doing something wrong. And it can be really, really counterproductive to have that view of well-being. Instead it's actually much more practical than that, and much more of, we just need a kind of wider perspective on it really. And a lot of the kind of, so like I said, we've got this model of well-being that brings in many factors, and a lot of the data we collect, well, all of the data we collect with employees and with organizations can be kind of fitted and mapped to this model, so we can help organizations and individuals kind of unpack their well-being, either at an aggregated level or with individuals. But I forgot what I was going to say. I was going to say, so we've put this model together, and a lot of it's based on different parts of psychology and different theories that have existed maybe since the 1960s, 1970s, 1980s. So there has been a lot of work and research done in psychology. There's been a lot of thinking kind of in philosophical, academic philosophical circles around this. And for us, it was just a case of kind of pulling all of that together and understand it, and kind of having a comprehensive view of what that all meant. So we took a lot of kind of, I'll say inspiration for want of a better word, but inspiration, theory, learnings from psychological research, and kind of layered onto that with our own to validate this model. Because a lot of work's been done on it, and it's, like you said, it's an area of real interest. People want to be functional in their lives. They want to experience life in kind of the best way possible, despite its ups and downs. So it's been an area of interest in those circles for a long time, as you can imagine. Well, probably as long as we've been, humans have existed. As long as humans have existed, trying to figure it all out. So
there's something. I mean, I love what you're saying anyway, but there's something you said there around this kind of, certainly a very westernized view that we should be happy all the time. And I think within that you can see the dangers of social media, where you're getting a view as you scroll. You're only seeing the curated best bits of somebody's life, but
Yeah.
you might be thinking everyone's life is just a constant stream of happiness and great things and celebration. And then you reflect and look upon yourself and go, I haven't done anything Instagrammable today.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
does does that mean there's something wrong with me? And it's
yeah.
dangerous, isn't it?
It is. It can be really dangerous, and there's more and more research coming out about the risks with social media around that, isn't there? Especially for young people who don't necessarily have as much kind of experiences, perspective, and how people's lives actually are. You know, if you're only seeing these things on social media, and it can be really, really damaging
Yeah.
to mental health.
But you
For sure.
said, and again, this is I love the sound of this. You said for you and the work you're doing at Sabio with the team, that well-being is very practical and that
Yes.
you can think about it practically. Could you just elaborate on that a bit?
Yeah, so I think was one of the really key things that we need to crack in terms of organizational well-being and how we help people at work. It also is really key for just well-being in general, and kind of how individuals can help themselves and put things in place to improve their well-being. But if we focus on the organizational side of things for now, I think the issue, and like you said, well-being is quite a loaded word. So when we say well-being,
Yeah.
organizations often are a bit like, oh, well, we've done a survey, or we can do mindfulness classes,
They've
or
got a table tennis table.
yeah, that type of thing. And there is a place for some
Yeah.
of those things. Like, maybe it's nice to go and do yoga for an hour, but it's not actually attacking or seeing well-being as a whole. It's not kind of addressing issues directly, and it's kind of it's throwing money into something that's not necessarily based on that full understanding of well-being, or kind of data-driven ideas of what actually will help. It's just kind of, oh, people like ping pong, or people like yoga's good for the mind, which, both of those are true. And like I said, there is a place for those, but often it means that organizations who are trying to do something they want to
Yeah.
help their employees, like
It's from a good
organization it's from a
place.
really good place, like, but it's just really difficult to crack. And it's a lot of it comes down to, like I said, the environment. So environmental pressures are really important. So understanding things like the amount of work, the type of work, the kind of safety at work. So being able to kind of voice opinions without fear of reprisal, that type of thing. How people are able to focus at work. What's the working environment like in general? All of those things, when you start to understand that, actually give you a much better basis for making decisions that can improve well-being. Same with things like, we know that people, to improve well-being, people need to feel appreciated. They want to feel like they've had accomplishments. They want to have support around them. They want to have kind of relationships with people that they feel they can tell things to, or that they can have kind of positive regard from, that type of thing. So once you start putting these things into a model of well-being and unpacking where issues might lie, it gives you a much more targeted and kind of tangible way to improve people's well-being. And that kind of, I always think of it as almost like a fingerprint for well-being. Everybody has all of these aspects within their lives. So I think things like, okay, I might feel like I've made some really good accomplishments this week or this year, but my friend might not, and that's a difference between us. Or I can't focus at all. I find it really difficult to focus, whether that's because of how my brain works or my environment around me, but my friend finds it really, really easy. So that's everybody's got a different kind of well-being profile, if you like. Every team will have a different wellbeing profile, every organization, and different things work for different people. So it's about is kind of mapping all of that, and using data to track that and understand the impact of changes that you made based on that data. So it's really this kind of continuous cycle and reflection on across many different areas of well-being. Another really, really key area that's much more practical for organizations and individuals to think about is this area of behaviors. So this isn't necessarily environmental factors, but it's to do with your experience, or the way that you kind of approach your life and the decisions that you made, the boundaries you put in place. So it's things like creating boundaries. So how do you separate work and life? What are the boundaries you put in place so that you feel comfortable with talking to colleagues or something like that? Are you able to switch off after work or at a particular time on the evening so that your mind's not racing? Are you able to go and have you got a particular friend that you like to talk to? Have you put like kind of things in place so that you feel able to approach them, that type of thing? Being able to say no to things, like are you the type of person who tends to say yes and then overburdens yourself? So that I think we've got about 12 in our model at the moment of different kind of fundamental behaviors that can really impact well-being that are related to work. There's things like getting enough rest. I think a lot of people, as well as the other thing that tends to be really common when we're talking about well-being, alongside this idea of kind of happy versus sad, is the kind of fundamentals of getting outside, having enough water, getting enough rest. And I think people can get a bit tired of hearing those, and they're actually so super important. They really, really are. And they're an incredible kind of fundamental a part of our well-being. We're human, we need water, we need rest. And as soon as you don't have enough of that, if you're cooped up inside, that is going to have an impact on your mental health. But I think the same with mindfulness. It's another one that's kind of, go for a walk or try mindfulness. There are certain things that have been kind of don't resonate anymore, or don't help people feel engaged with their well-being, because it's kind of like, well, yeah, I know that, but either I haven't put it in place, or I feel like I have put it in place and I still don't feel like, I still think there's I'm still feeling really stressed, or whatever it might be. So that's where our model kind of helps organizations and individuals go beyond those kind of fundamental or more kind of commonly talked about behaviors that can improve well-being to things that are actually much more specific and targeted. And I think the kind of final thing in terms of the kind of practicality of our well-being approach is that because we work with organizations with employees, we listen to employees, and we do things like focus groups, interviews. We understand their kind of working day, and we also work really closely with team leaders and managers, as well as the organization kind of higher levels, things like organizational strategy. What that means is that it creates a really common language across all the levels of the organization, so that people can have a common understanding of what well-being is. They can have common phrases or kind of common terms that they can use, and they'll know that their manager knows what they mean. They know that their manager and is on the same page as them. So if they want to go and talk to their manager or something like that, that it's something that the manager will have been trained to accept or listen to. It means that the right conversations can start to happen. People feel more comfortable to have those conversations if it feels like something that's kind of integrated and understood across all employees and all levels. So that's another really key thing to making kind of really practical and really meaningful changes within an organization, and kind of across that idea of well-being.
That's great. I love that. Even just in terms of feeling that you're okay that you're heard, and
Yeah.
that it's a shared language, and
Yeah.
you, if you've had this kind of like shared commitment to focus on everyone's well-being, you do feel comfortable to say, here's what I need, and whether that's kind of feeling valued,
Yeah.
appreciated,
Yeah.
or feeling like you have got someone to talk to. But it was fascinating to hear, and I was nodding along. It's fascinating to hear how quickly people can get into that kind of eye rolling about,
Yes.
I
Yeah.
know I've got to get outside. I
Yeah.
know I've got to meditate. And yes, I have tried that app,
Yeah.
but do you think, because it's as a concept, it's suffered because of familiarity, that it's just everyone hears it. However, if you push past that and say, well, have you actually tried consistently getting
Mm,
outside every day? And
mm,
people will go, well, no, probably not.
mm. Yeah, it's an interesting point. I think consistency, sorry, is a really key word. Like consistency
Mm,
is massive. I mean, you want if you're gonna change habits or change behaviors, consistency is key, right? If you're trying to build
mm,
kind of a new way of living or a new boundary
yeah,
in your life, you need to have that consistency. I do think that because it's been a hot topic, and for good reason, but because it's been a hot topic,
yeah,
it's almost like um like when a song's kind of overplayed. I think like I said, some things,
yeah,
some parts of
yeah,
the way that we talk about well-being feels a bit overplayed um to people. And another really interesting um things or side to this is that if you're feeling like pretty good, oh, I'm feeling okay actually, like I'm feeling fine, like this doesn't I don't need to listen to this, or this isn't for me. Because I think often well-being is quite focused on when things are going quite badly, or people
yeah,
who are really struggling. Um, but actually, well-being's really important even when you're doing really well. A, because you need to understand why. Like
mm,
what's in place right
mm,
now, or what am I doing well, or what is going well? What's making me feel like I don't need well-being advice? That's really important to do
mm,
now, to
yeah,
self-reflect, so that when more difficult things do happen, you'll maybe have a bit of an idea of what could help, or even just a vision of where you want to get to. That can be really important.
mm,
Um, so yeah, and I think the other thing is that one of the really important areas for us in all of this is positive psychology. So this isn't just kind of getting yourself out of, if you're stuck in a rut, or if you're having troubles with your well-being or mental health, getting to a place where you're kind of balanced and stable again. It's actually also about being helping yourself to have the best experience that you can have. And I think another area that's really grates with people, or it actually grates with me, I don't really like the phrases like being your best self and all of that kind of rhetoric. I think actually, again, you've got to be really careful with when talking about well-being, because it can really play into that the kind almost like the Instagrammy stuff again, right? This kind of needing to
yeah,
be your
yeah,
best constantly, and that's also quite
mm,
sort of well, it's like impossible to like always be like
yeah, yeah,
up at the top
yeah,
constantly. It's like I said before, like well-being isn't about um like always sticking to this bar and like having a really consistent happiness and smashing the gym every day and eating healthy. It's like it's much it's
yeah,
about it's being kind to yourself, feeling content, or feeling balanced,
mm,
or feeling, like I said before, being able to get through the difficult times. And we have lots of different coping mechanisms. Some of them would be unhealthy if you did them consistently, like, oh, I just really want like a burger and a beer tonight. And that's
yeah,
fine, because it
yeah,
can help you
yeah,
relax, it can make you feel good. And you know that about yourself. For example, like that's something that you might like, or like, I don't know, like a really cozy blanket, whatever it is. Um, and recognizing what you can do to kind of help you relax and kind of have a kind of chill out time is good. Like I think it can be, yeah, really dangerous to kind of also have that like have super control over
Completely.
everything, and so it's the language we use around well-being that we need to think about carefully, and that can really put people off talking about well-being if that's the kind of vision that they have of it, yeah.
I completely agree. There's some guys that I will follow and listen to on TikTok, and there's one guy in particular. He's an insane athlete, but he again, I listen to him talk sometimes, and I just think it's just so unrealistic to think that you can get up at 4 a.m., do 100 press ups, go and run an ultra marathon,
Yeah.
then eat nothing but raw fruit. And you just think, oh, it's just it's nice to have targets and goals, and nice to, I think, that kind of growth mindset of, I just want to get better at something, but I want to enjoy the process of doing it, whilst also recognizing that everyone's life has ups and downs, and that you shouldn't, if you haven't entered an ultra marathon this week, you're still a okay person. It's fine. Do you know what I mean?
Exactly. Yeah, you can.
Don't worry.
Exactly. It can often kind of be like, oh, what am I'm doing it wrong? I'm not very good at X, Y, or Z. Yeah, it can turn into kind of self-hate or really damaging if you kind of go down that route. And I think this is reminding me actually of conversations that I've had with people around call center like monitoring the side of things. So it's kind of, I know that a lot of employees or agents can often feel really what's the word, like scrutinized by some of the technologies that are currently out there, and that often, the data isn't used to kind of help me improve. It's actually kind of an unrealistic expectation that I've got to hit this particular level of performance constantly, and it's just it's not the way humans work. It's especially in the modern call center environment, where the calls that are coming through are more complicated. Like those kind of routine calls are taken out by AI. So the calls that humans are getting, and where humans are expected to give the human touch, that's what customers want. Okay, I'm speaking to a human, thank goodness, because I can tell them what I want, they can respond in a human way. I'm sick of the AI. That's something that people get really frustrated with. So kind of that customers want a human that can be flexible, who can be empathetic, but that means that the types of call can be much more varied, or the kind of barometer of or the standardization of calls. It can be kind of difficult, and sometimes doesn't really help with understanding performance, and can kind of just make people feel like they don't have control or autonomy in those types of calls, where it could really help the customer. So I think it's an interesting kind of what's the word? It's like a tendril from the past, where we used to have much more kind of process-driven calls, where there potentially was these kind of set kind of tick box you kind of had to do, and
I think
actually it can be really damaging when you're like, oh, I'm not hitting this performance bar, and maybe we're doing it slightly wrong with the role changes that we have.
I think there's a whole other podcast all by itself on that, because I do you know what? Because I'm a massive believer of there's no other industry where there's more KPIs put on people that are and when I say entry level, I don't mean that in a derogatory, dismissive way, but these are guys that, for a lot of them, it's their first job, or it's the first time in an office customer facing environment, and you are you potentially, and I think it has got better, but nonetheless it's still there. You are scrutinized to such an extent that it is oppressive, that you and I'll give you an example. People that know me will have heard this before, but someone was conducting a really, really good call, and they were just in the flow. And as to your point, it was a very human conversation. And this girl was pulled up by quality, because one of the rules that they had was name exchange, that you should tell the customer your name, and you should reference their name, and it had a set number, 3 or 4 or whatever. And so the very next call this girl was on, she again had a great call, but then at the end realized that she hadn't said her name enough times. So she said to the customer, "Oh, Phoebe, so my name's Martin. Yeah, you remember my name's Martin." And it just was so it was so
Oh,
clunky. It
yeah.
was so out of the energy and the vibe between them
Yeah.
that the customer was like, the customer
What's going
said,
on?
are you okay? Yeah. Are you having a stroke?
Oh,
And it's, but the psychological impact of, and it isn't just on the phones. I think we've got to be so careful in our industry that we're not, oh, you were 2 minutes late back
mm,
from your break.
mm,
You know, I get it. We get access to so much information, but it's a responsibility of leadership, I think, to
mm,
think about how much of that they use,
yeah.
and certainly how much of that they use to interact with people. Because, like you say, you can feel like you're doing a good job, and then someone might sit down with you and say, right, we're now going to analyze 27 different metrics.
Mm,
Guess what? There's going to be some where you're not hitting target, and
yeah.
that's what you take away with you
That's
outside
it.
when you leave that interaction with your supervisor. You're
Yeah.
not necessarily thinking about the 20 things you've done well. You're thinking
Uh,
about the 7
yeah.
that you haven't done well, and it's too much.
It is, yeah. Yeah, it's a really, really common bias where you focus on the negative. And some
Mm,
people struggle with it more than others, but it's again, it's things like helping managers to understand how to present feedback in a way
mm,
that feels more balanced for the employee, so they don't have a kind of that sense of, you know, well, disappointment or kind of
mm,
bashing themselves because they made this one mistake or something like that. It's really interesting that he touched on kind of how much data is collected in call centers as well, or contact centers, because that's another really something I love about my role at the moment, is that what we want to do is take all of that data. We've got so much informative data about the way we can
mm.
literally map how everybody's working, you know,
Yeah,
how individuals are
yeah.
working the whole time that they're working within the contact center. And kind of instead of using that to add more pressure or kind of higher standardization like levels, or, you know,
Mm,
performance levels,
mm,
using that and comparing it or laying it against information about well-being. So if we can track you know, people's levels across all of those different
yeah.
areas of our well-being model, and kind of do it continuously, or if, you know, somebody kind of answers, you know, 1 minute of questions every day, or even, or something like that, and we can start to map people's well-being at a quite a detailed or kind of intricate or targeted individual level, and lay that against the ways that they're working, and we can use that data to actually start to find patterns. And we could even do things like A/B testing, so understanding, okay, if we had an extra break, or if we had a, you know, 3 minutes between each call, or whatever it could be,
Mm,
you know,
yeah.
we can do research programs with organizations or with different groups of people to understand the impact of that on well-being, or, you know, if there are particular shifts or teams or whatever it could be that impacts different areas of well-being. You can start to use that data for kind of what feels like something good. It can help to improve well-being, and B, to help organizations and team leaders have really, really targeted action plans on how to improve well-being for
Mm,
their team or for their organization more widely. Because I think when we've got all this data, it can be really hard to know where to kind of focus in. And with well-being,
yeah.
it can be really hard, as we said earlier, it can be really hard to know where to focus in, where we can get kind of you know, meaningful outcomes and tangible action. So using that data alongside well-being data can be so powerful, and yeah, a really, really important part of the work that we're doing to kind of improve strategy and approach, and kind of evidence-based decision making for team leaders and managers. And what we hope, or what we know it can do, is that it can reduce stress or workload for managers, because they can have much more targeted conversations based on the information and
Mm,
data that they're provided with. So we can set, for example, say, oh, you know, 60% of your team are finding it really hard to focus this week. Immediately, we can help them to build an action plan, and we can help them to have the right conversations with their team. They can understand what's impacting their difficulty in focusing, and so it just kind of cuts out all the proverbial, I don't know, cuts out, you know,
Yeah.
it means that you can kind of
You can say it.
you can like focus in on where actually, you know, where change can be made that can be beneficial. So using that data is actually really, really key. And you know, workforce management is also really important. And again, it's just making sure that we use technology to support our teams, support our people, rather than having them feel like they're kind of working against it, or that it's not helping them. That's not where anybody really wants technology and data to be used, is it?
Not at all. And let's make an executive decision. Can you would you like to come back on and do another one? We carry on.
Yeah, I'd love to. I really enjoyed that. Yeah, I know we've gone over, haven't we?
There's so much more. There's so much more we could talk about, but
yes, it's true.
Phoebe, thank you very much. Dr. Phoebe Asquith, thank you so much for coming on, and we will be booking another one so we can carry on.
Definitely. That sounds great. Oh, thanks so much for having me on, Martin. I really enjoyed it.
No problem. Thank you.